Hey Marshall, it's good to see you made it in here today. I know that you've been on the waiting list for probably quite a while,
Quite a while, yeah.
quite a while,
Quite a while.
and you're finally off the waiting list and ready to get started. And I'm curious to see what do you think would be most helpful in coming here to VR?
Well, the good start would be no waiting list.
That would be a great start.
And I think the second great start would be getting me a job. It's been about 6 months since I think I filled out some applications or something to get started, and 6 months later I have no job, and it's my first meeting with a counselor. So,
That's got to be frustrating.
yeah, but on the plus side, your expectations are pretty low, so you can probably meet them pretty easily.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. But really, all I'm looking for is a job. There's a place down the road that's hiring, and they've been hiring for 6 months. I think I should have been working there 6 months ago. It's a nursing home, and they're advertising everywhere, and there's tons of positions there, and that's what I'd really like is just you to help me get a job there.
So over the past kind of at least 6 months you've been thinking about this. You've had some ideas of what would work well for you, and of all the options you've come up with, the nursing home one just seems like wow, that just seems like a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, yeah, and 6 months is a long time to think about that. I walk by it a lot. I read the ads every day. So I mean, yeah, it seems like fairly easy work I can do.
Great. And the thing that's really what I like about this, in terms of figuring out where you're coming from, is you've had some time to think about even the kind of your history of where things have been with that, and how has that worked in terms of your thinking? Nursing home, some of the legal history that you've had. How are those two fitting together? Where do you see some really strengths that you have going into that, and where do you see some pretty major barriers?
To be honest, I just want a job, and in a nursing home, there's older people. They should be pretty easy to help. There's dishwashing jobs there. There's janitor's jobs there. So I don't really see it as strengths and weaknesses because I think I can do any of those things. I'm just looking for a job. So
And so part of it is just like getting into something with some manual labor, something you're really interested in.
yeah, and to be honest, I mean, I don't even have to be interested in. My grandmother's been supporting me for a while now, and I just want to be able to help out. And all I want is a job. And it seems like it's been a long process. All I want is a job.
Definitely. And the whole thing with kind of the legal history piece of it, there are some kind of when you're working with people a lot of the times, what we run into is the legal history, it'll be just like a complete barrier to that. Like if you go in for that kind of a job, that it's like there's no way you're getting around this. They won't even take applications. But they'll look at the application, see there's a felony history. It's not even an option, janitor or anything like that. If that happened with the nursing home, what are your thoughts about that, or what's kind of your what other things have you thought about?
Well, probation and parole told me the exact same thing, and then they said, but local rehab should be able to help you out. So I'm hoping that you guys can help me with that. Yeah, I hope that you guys can help me get past that. If the nursing home won't hire me at all because I'm a felon, I'd be surprised if that was against the law. I wouldn't want to work with them anyway, and I'll probably spit on their lawn every time I walk by from now on. But yeah, I don't know why you guys shouldn't be able to help me get a job there.
And so that's one of the things for you too is when you're kind of thinking about things or working with different people, if they kind of cross you or cause barriers for you, there still causes some of that kind of reaction that you have kind of historically they've had a problem with of how do I get along with people. And so this whole thing, if they kind of shut you down, then that still kind of generates some kind of frustration for you.
Yeah, everyone makes mistakes, and if someone's going to judge me for things I did 6 years ago, you know, I don't want to be around them anyway. I don't judge them; they shouldn't judge me.
Yeah, everybody should give you a fair shot, a fair shot.
Right, right. I bet I can do half their jobs better than they can anyway. So
And you've got some pretty good skills.
I think so.
And so when you think about the skills that you do have, and then you think about some of these potential barriers that could come up, what are ways that you've handled those in the past that are like, wow, people have been really impressed with how you've kind of problem solved some of these things when you run into some barriers?
Well, I had some great jobs before I got into a little bit of trouble. I did construction work and things like that. I worked with a bunch of guys who, I mean, you could just be honest, talk regularly. I could say whatever, and we just did our work, and we did a great job, and we got complimented on it, and I felt like I did really well there. And as long as no one is I guess yells at me or says anything mean to me, I do great.
So as long as it's a really positive, supportive work environment, you do well. What are other things about work environments that you like, well, I just do so well here, I'm kind of rocking it out. What are other things that happen?
I really think, I really need a job right now, and I really think I could do good in any environment. I could do anybody's job. I think that I like to work with people, and I think I'm a people person, and I just really need a job. anything in my area, anything close to my home, I can do.
So from all the good job experiences you have had, what are some of the things that haven't gone so well? Where there's either been kind of tensions or things kind of fall apart or that just don't fit with kind of the way that you like to work?
Well, I lost maybe a couple jobs, but that was back 6 years ago when I was drinking, and but ever since then I've been doing great, and I don't think there's anything I can't do. So that's all I'm asking is for vocational rehabilitation to give me a job.
Okay. So, like you keep saying, getting a job now is really important to you. You've had some barriers in the past that you've been able to see that you've had problems in the past with like drinking and some anger management problems that have kind of been barriers for you. But then there's part of you that thinks that there's just absolutely no way that's going to be a problem from here on out or in the future.
Right, right. Yep. I think once I get a job, I'm gonna do great. I'm gonna rock their socks off. I'm a hard worker and I'll do it great. And all that stuff's in the past.
What are your thoughts? I'm just kind of curious about this whole, if you don't get things to go kind of as smoothly as you like them to. The thing you're talking about earlier, and I'm kind of curious about it, is like even with the nursing home job, if they don't hire you, the whole thing about like spitting in the yard and stuff like that, dude, what's up with that? I mean, how is that going to get you a job? I mean, realistically. Because there's still that kind of frustration when you kind of get shut down on things.
Well, if they've already said they're not going to hire me because I'm a felon, then they've already judged me, and I don't like people who judge me before they know me. So it's just kind of my way to express myself. Let them know what I think of them, since they've always obviously said what they think of me.
And that feels pretty fair to you.
Absolutely.
If they're going to judge you, then there's kind of the payback potential there too.
An eye for an eye.
Okay, kind of a thing. In situations where that's worked for you well, tell me some work experience where that whole eye for the eye thing's worked really well for you.
It worked okay in construction. I mean, if I didn't get along with someone, I tell them, and they tell me, and maybe we'd argue a little bit, but a few weeks later we'd be fine. You just do your job and work. So.
Like if the nursing home does work out, how do you think that'll work out with like if you're dealing with a nurse or even a manager and a janitor, kind of situation, or if you're clearing tables, and you've got kind of a vulnerable population there, and you do have this kind of belief system that you really are kind of invested in that somebody does harm to you, you're going to do harm to them. Tell me how you see that playing out as far as being able to kind of keep that kind of a job. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'd never be mean to an old person, and if I had a job, I'd probably treat it differently. I learned to go to my supervisor if I have a problem or something like that. So I think I'd be all right. I think I can do it.
So what are your thoughts about if they like disrespected you in front of some other people? Like, if
if old people did?
No, like if your boss disrespected you in front of old people and like you're mopping the floor or something like that's going on and disrespected you and kind of your first instinct is eye for an eye.
Absolutely.
And so how do you see that playing out in kind of where you're working towards kind of more of a professional setting? How do you see that playing out?
If they told me not to get mad, I'd want them to tell me what to do in that situation. Hopefully they tell me what to do ahead of time. It would be hard for me not to say something to my boss. If he were to say something, make fun of me or something in front of a bunch of old people. But I guess, if someone told me to wait and talk to him after or talk to his boss, I could do that. It would be hard for me, but I could do it.
So you're really willing to try to, overcome some of those things about the eye for the eye thing, as long as it keeps you kind of employed in something that you like.
Right, right. Absolutely. If they were to give me a chance, I'd be willing to give them a chance.
Okay. And so the things you've talked about that are really helpful for you are if it's kind of if it's a less stressful environment where you can kind of be yourself and have kind of a code of honor, kind of a thing like when you're working on a construction site. And part of you wants to get immediately into a job, like get me a job now. And it sounds like if there's immediate jobs we get you into where there might be some of those barriers where there could be some things that kind of cause some upset for you or some frustration for you. Right now you're thinking those are things you can manage really well. You've pretty much got that stuff nailed down. So if somebody, is disrespectful for you or confronts you or gets in your face in a situation, that's really pretty much a non-issue.
If I had a job, I think it would be a non-issue.
I want to, since you're kind of managing some of these things and it feels like you're getting a handle on it, and it sounds like this almost taps into some of your recovery process. You're really trying to get yourself on track, get into this sense of kind of getting a handle on your life again. It's almost like looking at some career interest. And so I'm kind of curious with you, how much is it I just want to get to job and get a paycheck, and how much do you want to really get into kind of a career and settle into something where you have some mobility and really feel like you're kind of getting a start on your life, kind of rebuilding your life?
Well, I do feel like I'm better than a dishwasher and a janitor, and I know with a felony I have to start somewhere. But I'm willing to start at those positions, but I don't want to be doing that 10 years from now. I do want to be better. I do want to do something more, and I don't think it's fair for a felony to hold me down that long. So, I'm willing. Right now, it's about money. I'm willing to start anywhere. I'm willing to do any type of job, but eventually, I'd like to do something more.
What have you wanted to do? I mean, if there was no felonies, if there was none of this history, and knowing that you still have a little bit of kind of way of doing life that you kind of like, as far as there's a little bit of attitude there, and you have some pride in that. But what have you always wanted to do? I mean, what are the things that have been most interesting to you?
Well, I live with my grandmother now, and I cook most of her meals, and I really like that. It's rewarding to, put work into something and have someone eat it and enjoy it, and, I've always really liked to cook. So, I guess if I could do anything I'd like to have a restaurant or be a chef at a restaurant.
Just from the two things you've talked about, working construction and even with the cooking thing, it really seems like you like this sense of kind of being productive and having something at the end of the day or the end of something you've done, you've actually produced something that you're proud of.
Yeah, I like to see what my work looks like when I'm done. My hard work, I like to see what it looks like.
And almost for other people to appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if there's, when you're looking at those kind of things of kind of what feeds you, and it's like, it almost seems like when you talk about that stuff, it almost keeps your stress level down.
Yeah, because I like to do it. I want to do good so I can see people enjoy the work.
So I guess when I'm listening to this, what's really interesting is there's part of you that really wants to get a job, but a lot of the jobs you're talking about, and there is a reality that it may be an entry-level job, but there's a lot of them where there's more, when you're talking about washing dishes and things like that, there's kind of, there's going to be people overseeing that, and there's kind of a quality control thing, same with the other ones. And so it's almost as you start to tap into this whole thing about why do you like to do what you do, you almost start to relax. There's part of you that gets a little edgy sometimes, Marshall. You get kind of this attitude coming up. And there's times when you think about just being productive and kind of what you produced and how people perceive that. That's when you seem to be you kind of settle in and you mellow out a little bit. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think when people let me do my work, I can do it great, and I take pride in what I do, and I do things that I feel like I'm good at. And if people would just leave me alone and let me do my job, I can do it great. And like I said, I take pride in that. I take pride in my work, but people just have never left me alone enough to do it, I guess. But if people would just leave me alone, let me do my job, I think I'd do great.
See, and this is what I think could be so helpful is because you have such good insight in terms of when you do well. And then in the work environments, there's going to be times that these barriers come up that are going to kind of piss you off, that you are going to get frustrated and it's going to stress you out. And what I keep thinking about, here's the kind of Marshall that on one hand, when you're, swinging a hammer and producing something, at the end of the day, it feels like you put in a good day work, you were having fun. Or if you're doing something and you start to envision yourself kind of doing like working as a chef or, having your own restaurant or things like that, that just seems like who you really are underneath all that kind of stuff. But as soon as somebody gets in your way, it causes you lots of problems. And so it'll be curious to see how you kind of want to work this out in terms of, you've got some great potential here, you've got some really great drive, and when things are in alignment with that, you do well. But as soon as people get in your path, then things fall apart really quickly. And so it's going to be interesting as we're kind of talking about this stuff. What's more important for you? Is it more important for you to be able to have kind of this freedom and be who you want to be and be able to produce things? Or is it going to be that when people start to give you feedback and step on your toes, that you're going to make sure that there's kind of an eye for an eye payback situation? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm hoping, again, my probation parole officer told me some of the same things that you're talking to me about, and then he said, vocational rehabilitation should be able to help you with that. So I'm just hoping that, with you guys helping me be able to get a job and, maybe help me deal with those things a little bit. Mm-hmm. And like you had mentioned, if there's a job where I can eventually be a chef or something, I am going to be excited. And hopefully you guys can help me find that job. But most of the places I go to throw up roadblocks, and they tell me I can't do things and can't do things. So all I want is a job and a chance.
one of the things why I think this could be such a great fit is the role of VR is to get the roadblocks down as much as possible. And listening to what you're talking about here, the fact they're even willing to consider things like, how can I deal with my anger a little bit differently? Especially if I can get into this ultimate career job I'd like to be into. It seems like there's party that's a little bit workable. I mean, if it was like, wow, if I could get maybe a little bit of anger management classes in, or, those are the things VR can help you with, is how do we keep the barriers down so you can be as successful as you want to be? But the thing is I can't decide that for you. This is something that you have to decide. I mean, there are things about like getting counseling, or I know you're working a recovery program. The anger management thing keeps kind of popping up, and I think, wow, if there's a way that Marshall's going to shoot himself in the foot, it's going to be with this whole anger thing. And so there could be things we could support in terms of like some short-term counseling or things like that. But again, I can't decide that for you. These are things that we can support you with and we can help accommodate. But it has to be your decision, because I'm not going to make you do anything you don't want to do. All I'm letting you know is, you can shoot for just a job, or we can help you actually set yourself up for a career. But as you're looking at kind of these barriers that you have kind of climbing up to where you want to go, those are the things we can help you kind of navigate. But it has to be you deciding if you want to navigate those barriers. Those aren't going to go away, but we can help kind of alleviate or bring some of them down. So that's why I'm going to keep kind of dumping it back in your lap as far as, Marshall, dude, what do you want to do? What's really important for you? So, what are your thoughts?
Everything you're saying sounds really good, and I'd really love a position where I could do one of those things I love, but at the same time, I really need a job. And if maybe there's a way you guys can help me get a job and I can be doing that anger management stuff on the side, I'd probably be willing to do that. But what I really need is a job. And if you guys can, help me get a job and then maybe work towards something more, then that's exciting to me.
This is perfect, because the thing that I think that we definitely can do is maybe we'll do some like career interest assessment. We can fill out some stuff around that, and you can do kind of an assessment and figure out what really fits for you. You've already talked about some great ideas that you have. We can also look at kind of some short-term jobs you could get into. That it's like, especially if you're willing to go to work. And I think having these kind of conversations with somebody, even like maybe a counselor, it sounds like you've got a sponsor in place, or a counselor to work on the anger management, could kind of dovetail and fit that together really well. They kind of lock into place, that dovetail joint there, and fit those together in a way that just fits really well for you. So again, getting what your interests are, get you into kind of a shorter term where it's like, I've got some money coming in, feeling stable, but kind of keeping an eye on how could I actually stay employed in a way that I really feel like that this works for me.
That sounds great.
Great.
Yeah, I like that.